You can say it's a kind of shifting of a paradigm. It's a paradigm shift. So we are gradually, if you look into today's business, you will see the availability of data is limitless, and the technology are getting day by day smarter and sharper. So the business dynamics actually, it's more challenging rather than before. And as the business progressing in towards that, era, you can see the complexity of the business and the speed of change is also increasing. So this risk management, where primarily the focus was the subjective and individual perspective, now it is changing. We are trying to find out some optimal way to dealing with the emerging risk landscape. Means we are always try to predict what are the possible risks are there, or we can, we are trying to forecast some sort of the risk which you might face in near future. So that's why we are more interested in risk-enabled performance management system, which actually helps all stakeholders to identify, or what are the potential risk or the risk trends. And to measure these things, we need some some metrics. Those metrics are effectively monitored, helps to monitor. Now, such kind of, if you look into any small business, you will see there are two things. One is called the likelihood, one is called the impact. Now, in cases of likelihood, there are three different types of likelihood. One is called the probable likelihood, which is very likely to happen. And the another is a possible and improbable, means some chances of happening and the small chances of happening. And once we talk about impact, impact can be of four different categories. One is the acceptable impact, one is the tolerance, one is intolerance or intolerable rather, and another is called the unacceptable kind of. So these are the four different categories. So likelihood and impact, if you try to plot it into matrix, you will see that there are some possible and say maybe improbable, means where the risk is unlikely to occur or risk will likely occur, and the impact is also acceptable, means a little bit of impact or almost not such kind of effect. These are basically the green zone. There is no as such risk. But if you look into this place where the possible and the probable likelihood and the impact is unacceptable or intolerance, this is actually the danger zone. So we are trying to always move from this danger zone to keep into a safe zone, our business. So that's why likelihood and impact matrix is very important for identification and mitigation of the risk. Now, talking about other matrices, if you try to plot the likelihood and the consequences, so the consequences might be in the Likert scale. So low, medium, high, very high, and the extreme consequences. And the likelihood is also from the rare, unlikely, even chances, likely, and almost certain. So in this, all these, you can see there are four different types. One is called that they say likelihood is rare and unlikely, and the consequences is very low and say medium, if such kind of things happen. So medium consequences or very low consequences. So what you need a periodic monitoring. Now, once the consequences is medium and low, and your likelihood is, may say for example, almost certain likelihood or very much likely. So what you need a periodic review. So it's one is periodic monitoring, one is the periodic review. Now, if the consequences are extreme or very high, and likelihood is also likely or almost certain, that means you need a continuous review. And the last one is rare, unlikely likelihood and extreme or very extreme kind of consequences, which is called continuous monitoring. So you need either periodic monitoring or periodic review or continuous monitoring or continuous review. So it's a kind of shifting from periodic to continuous with a time frame, which is a reactive to proactive kind of. And the another last category, which is risk monitoring matrix, if you look into it, you will see the compliance and the appropriateness. There is sometimes you required re-engineering people and re-engineering process as an outcome. Okay, so we will use this matrix in later of the talk. We will discuss about this. But what important thing is the incorporation of data analytics, how you can deploy for the risk management. See, always we try to identify, we try to assess, we try to mitigate, and we try to monitor the risk. So if you have some sort of risk, we try to reduce it, we try to transfer the risk, or we try to avoid that sort of risk, or maybe you have to accept that risk. So these are something kind of mitigation or assessment of identification. And finally, you can monitor the risk. And here, data analysis plays a significant role. For any organization, there can be some internal risk, there can be some external risk. Now, internal risk might be maybe the lack of funding or the business portfolio, etc. Or the external risk may be the climate changes or some sort of environmental changes or say regulation changes, etc. Now, these type of risk which you need to identify, and for identifying the risk, such type of risk, what you need some data analysis which you can carried out by means of web scraping or maybe the any kind of data analytical tool or visualization tool, etc. So say for example, if you want to, there is a technique called web scraping where you try to scrap from say RSS feed or HTML for social media, maybe from some sort of, you can say, company's information, search options, means the search engine, or from all those sources you can gather the data. And the data which you will gather is a kind of the velocity and the volume and the variety of the data will be enormous, which is so-called big data. So you need to create, or you need to gather lots of different types of potential risk. And after that, you need to go for analysis. So the emerging trend of, you can say this actually of this data, growing data, which you are gathering from different sources, which need to be properly analyzed. So you need a sophisticated analyzing tool, which actually can, try to identify, rather better to say, for those emerging risks. Now, the second one is the risk assessment and prioritization. So once you try to identify the risk, then you have to assess those risks and you have to prioritize that which risk is, which level, the ticket level, means is it a very high end risk or it's a very low end risk. And for that, for the prioritization of the risk, what you need those metrics. Those metrics means the impact likelihood metrics. But from those metrics, you can prioritize that these risks which you need to focus more on currently, now. So that means the second step is the assessment and the prioritization, where you need to find out the risk, the profiles, and you need to indicate that which particular risk you have to focus more based on that impact and likelihood matrix. Then comes the risk response and the mitigation. Now, there can be several ways to handle the risk. There can be definitely one best suitable alternative, and always if you know only one option, if you have only one solution for this, that is not a good good approach. So you always have say maybe multiple options so that you can respond for that particular risk. And you have to always select based on the criteria, you have to select the alternative. So it's always, we have to decide the different path for risk solution. So risk response and mitigation always requires different possible solution. And for that, what you have to come up with different modeling. Now, what are the different risk modeling? Different risk modeling are actually, you are trying to simulate. What you are trying to simulate? You are trying to simulate what if scenario. Means what if the situation occurs, such type of situation occurs, then what if this situation will occur? How will you cope up with this? So you are trying to frame different situations which are not actually in reality, which is not there, but that might occur. So you are trying to simulate such kind of different scenario and different case study or scenario. Once you what type of different potential risk can be there, and what if such scenario occurs, then how can you respond and how can you mitigate? So in this way, you are trying to create some virtual platform, or what you are trying to simulate some risk which needs to be actually addressed. So this is called the what if scenario. It's a kind of risk response and the mitigation stage. Now, to implement this mitigation planning, what you need to do, you have to, there should be some technique or strategy which actually allow the mitigation owner. And always you need to revisit and refocus. And for all these, what we need some artificial intelligence, or rather better to say ML modeling. So which actually creates the scenario, which will create the workflow, what there should be some analytical tool from where we will try to visualize and we will try to come up with some certain models. So that's why AI ML models are very important for such kind of cases. Then comes the risk monitoring. So over a period of time, if you try to find out or if you try to monitor, what we need to identify a particular risk. Then from after identification, what we try to do, what we have to do, that identification of risk actually indicates each of the risk is important to measure the trends and the movements of the data parameters which are associated with the risk. So if you have a risk, there are different factors, different parameters associated with the risk. So you have to identify what are the different data or the parameter associated with that risk and how they are trending. So looking at the trend of different associated parameter with that risk, you can also monitor that risk. So somehow you are not directly control the risk, rather the parameters or the factors which are associated with the link, you are trying to monitor those so that ultimately the main risk of the business can be monitored. So that might be leading, that might be the lagging indicator. So this is called some sort of risk monitoring, which you actually here the risk analysis plays a significant role by analyzing the actual data, ground data. Now, as I said, until now, what I was trying to discuss, that is the identification, mitigation, analysis, all these. This can be classified into two different framework. One is called the risk analysis, one is called the risk management. Now, the very first thing, the first stage is called you have to decide how. That is the risk management planning. That is called, that will be given the how you actually try to deal with the risk. The second stage is find them. That means the risk identification. The third phase, one is a qualitative, one is a quantitative. So one you are trying to filter and one you are trying to measure. So once you have the quantitative, then you accept the risk or not accept the risk, that business risk. So if you accept that risk, so or maybe you are not accepting the risk, so how you are responding. So it's a kind of decision action. That is the fifth step. And the last step, how you are acting or how you are reacting or how you are measuring. So that is some sort of risk monitoring or control. So one part is the analysis part, one part is the managing part. So first part, actually, it tells you the identification analysis part, the quantification and the qualification. And once you try to quantify, then after that you have to go for the management. You accept that risk or you will not accept the risk. So it's a kind of workflow technology which actually tells you that this kind of risk, maybe the business will cope up, or if the business actually face such kind of scenario, maybe it can come out from that. Now, this is actually the entire life management or the life cycle of the risk management. Now, for that you need, as I already said, you need some report generation, which is basically generated by some data analysis. So from real-time view, what will be the different risk and how it can help, all these things actually stored as a past learning. So that is called the frozen knowledge. Frozen knowledge means you are transferring that knowledge to a separate paradigm. That suppose if you have a previous business, from that there was some risk, and you cope up with that risk, and after that you have started a new business, and from that prior knowledge you are trying to transfer that knowledge. So it's a kind of frozen knowledge which you're gathering from the previous experiences. So reporting is a kind of thing from one particular business. If you have a risk reporting, if you're going for a second business, now what we try to do, you are trying to transfer that knowledge, and that knowledge means it's a kind of frozen knowledge. So frozen knowledge always gives you a better solution because it's a kind of past learning. So that's why data analytics is important. It's a kind of transfer learning where you are trying to solve a particular business problem, business risk, from the report which you actually gathered from a previous business risk solving. So that is called the transfer learning model. Now, interesting part is, if you look into the whole data, you will see in business there are structured data, semi-structured data, and unstructured data. And majority of the data, maybe 75 to 80% data, are unstructured data. Unstructured data means the data are mostly multimedia data. It might be the textual, audio, or video data. So any organization, there are lots of data actually stored every day, which can be created by the buyers or the customers, maybe the sellers, directly, indirectly. There are a lot of digital data you will get. So one is the volumetric, the volume. Second thing is the velocity, the way the data is transferring, the shift rate. And once it is coming as a first rate, then the last one is a variety, different types of sources. From different sources, you are gathering the structured data, semi-structured data, or unstructured data. So once the data is a huge data or big data, you need sophisticated technique to analyze those data so that from that data, you can find out the business potential risk, or you can come up with some sort of strategy. How can you cope up with that such kind of risk? So data analysis is very important because which you gathered from real life is a huge amount of data. Now, talking about machine learning, see, any machine learning algorithm is very much hungry about data. Their intrinsic nature is the data hungriness. So that machine learning, any kind of algorithm, is very much depends on, or they are very sensitive to the data which you are using for the training purpose. Now, once you're using a high quality data, your result will be good. So if you're using garbage, you will get garbage result. So that's why we always have to look into the training data, where the data need to be very consistent data or so-called good data. Now, for good data, getting good data is not always easy, because once you are trying to web scrap, you are gathering data from different platforms. The data which you are gathering is full of, say, noise or maybe the garbage data. So to identify those errors, and you have to remove those so that it will not ultimately negatively impacted the predicted model. So that's why data cleaning process is very important. Now, what is so-called bad data? Bad data means inconsistent schema, maybe the extraneous text, missing data, redundant data, contextual data, which is called the error or the garbage value. So all are called so-called bad data. So if you train your system with bad data, ultimately you will see it is not actually able to find out the risk, the potential risk. So that's why the prediction model will be a failure case, or the forecasting model will not work properly. So if there is this is a very nice word that sentence, that the good data are alike. So any good data are almost alike, but bad data is bad its own way. So all bad data are different in nature. They are bad in their own way. So you have to deal with those bad data. So only gathering the data from social platform or anywhere, if you try to analyze those data, it actually not works. You need good data, and for good data, you need a proper data cleaning mechanism, so that you have to put good data, and good data will give you a good result. Now, that how much data is actually you need. Is there any heuristic method which tells you that this much of data is good for machine learning? There is no as such hard and fast rule. As much as your data you can give as an input, the learning mechanism will be good enough. So we always try to collect more and more data, and that's why big data plays a significant role. As much as your data, the volumetric data, velocity data, and variety of data you are able to gather, and you have to put it into the machine learning model. If the data are good data, ultimately you will see the result will be good. Now, if you look into this, you will see that if there is a single dot and you are trying to put a, say, a curve, say you are trying to fit a curve, if the number of data point increases, automatically the polynomial curve fitting will be smooth. So from poly order 1 to 2, maybe 3, the order will be very, as the order increases, the curve will be smooth. Or say, for example, in linear regression, the point number, if increases, you will see the fitting line will be much more, say, you can say the point estimation will be improved. So it's a kind of generalization you can see, or in number of data points, if you increase, you will see the clustering will be much more prominent. Or if you are trying to increase more data, if you go for, say, any kind of decision tree, you will see the decision-making process will be much more, faster, easier, easy to process and easy to visualize. So that's why you always need more data to come up with any kind of statistical analysis, and as well as for machine learning modeling. Because more data means more generalized way of talking. So once you try to talk with a machine, you need some data so that there will be a generalized model. So data is important, but the problem is always we don't have big data. Suppose there is a big business, they produces large amount of data, but the business size is small. If the business is very small business, they actually produces very less data. So once there is a less data, small data, that can be a problem for machine learning or AI models. Because if the data number is less, that means it always try to revolve around a high variance. The variance will be automatically high, or there is a chance of overfitting. Means almost all cases are positive cases. There is no negative cases. So it will be an overfit case. Ultimately, will get 100% accuracy, but it doesn't make any sense. Or maybe if you are having very less data, The outliers are very dangerous, because if there are 50 data, 5 outliers, or if there are 5,000 data, 5 outliers. So you can imagine the first cases is very dangerous case, because very less data, outlier number is more, or noise is more. That actually doesn't make any sense. So that's why small data, dealing with small data is always very challenging task. So that's why we always try to gather more data for a long period of time in a cross-sectional way. We try to collect different sources data so that the learning mechanism will be much more prominent. Anyway, so big data actually deals with the financial risk, the cyber security, attacks, or the predict the security of future companies. There are different applications of big data, which actually is a very deeply related with risk management. Now, if you look into the data tip, the internal information, you will see majority of the risks are actually related to the data. So it may be company's improvement of the sale, or the lower cost, or maybe streamlining, etc. So everywhere you will see lots of data associated with this, and which actually helps to manage the risk. Now, different areas like identifying the fraud. If there's a banking transaction fraud, you need more data to analyze this. Such kind of one can be this kind of risk. There can be financial risk, like suppose, for example, you are trying to offer a credit to a current or a new customer. So you are trying to deliver a product or a service before taking the payment. So after delivery, you will try to collect the money. So if such kind of scenario occurs, there is always a financial risk. So you need to know your customer. So if actually it helps to the business understanding that what will be the credit risk and the likelihood of the full payment before delivering the product or the services to the credit. Then comes the reduce the employee attrition, because once you are recruiting a person, you are for a particular post or a job, you are spending a lots of money for training purpose, for interview organization, for hiring, all these things. So always HR people, they actually focus on this, that is there any such kind of risk that the employee may leave that company. So it always we try to find out the risk, the attrition ratio, etc. Operational risk are also a biggest risk for any kind of organization, which actually allows you to identify the new potential risk. And then comes a digital risk, like identifying the vulnerability. So any companies, there are always, we always actually try to find out, is there any vulnerability before the digital bad actors do. So we need to find out those kind of digital risks. And there are some low risk also, like suppose you are trying to start a restaurant or maybe a retail shop. So you are trying to, establish that thing in one place. Before that, you have to find out that what is the demographics of the ethnicity, what is the people's liking. People will gather in that area. There is a parking option, etc. So all these factors you need to consider. It will be a risk. Maybe it's a lower kind of risk, but still it is a risk. So these are some of the risks which actually I try to tell that these are the different business risks which actually need to be focused by data analysis. Now, as I said, that artificial intelligence plays a significant role not only for one particular static business, maybe the productivity, the profitability, business result, everywhere we can deploy and we can embrace artificial intelligence. So one is the availability of the data is a very challenging task, because as much as data you provide, as I already said, the small data always the biggest problem for any learning mechanism. You need to give more data, and availability of the data for a business is very difficult, because there are different data privacy laws are there for enforced laws for different companies and different countries. So data are always not available to everyone, every employees. So that's why deploying artificial intelligence is sometimes a problem. Another problem is people are actually not, they are reluctant to learn sophisticated techniques or technologies. So technical staff need to be experienced and hired and properly trained. So that is a skill shortage is another limitation. So these are the main two limitations for deploying artificial intelligence in today's business. And lastly, cost is also a big factor, because initial setup for artificial intelligence based any kind of business is a big kind of investment. So these few risks are there. But if you try to, if I try to summarize, one is the implication that the time frame, you can find out the challenges or the acceptability. These are the three different factors. But apart from these, the customer's privacy is also there. The transparency is a big factor, and the technological complexity, which need to be understood by the employees or different stakeholders for any kind of AI-driven technology, is also very crucial. Now, if you look into the history, we'll see in 1780, we started machinization. Then after that, in 1870, it was the first electrification. Then 3.0, that is 1970. After 100 years, there is the first automation. Then within 10 years, it's a 3.5. Then automation is gradually, we move into offshore. It's a kind of globalization. Then 4, that is a 2 days, that is we are in the digitalization platform. And 5.0, actually, we talk about the cyber physical system, cognitive systems, which is a kind of mass customization, you can say. So we are moving towards that, is aiming 2025 or near about that. So industrial 5.0 is a future where we are more into the cobots rather than the robots. So it's a kind of collaborative robots rather than standalone robots. Okay, then comes, if you look into the society, we'll see, we started from 1.0, that is a hunting and gathering. Then 2 is agriculture, 3 is industrialization, 4 is the information, and now we are talking, I already discussed, but there are lots of others. But main concerns are, there are the concerns of cybersecurity, the prioritization of capital expenditure, the digital infrastructural cost, knowledge of the digitalizations, skill sets, or the talent of the companies, employees, etc., which actually is the biggest challenge or the barrier of digital transformation. So business can be transformed entirely into digital, but there are different challenges. So we are started, currently into 4.0, where the big data, say cyber physical systems are also there, clouds are there, robots are there, but we are trying to move into 5.0, where the backbone will be let's say 5 or 6 generation, and there will be 6G, and apart from these, there will be intelligent material devices, systems. So all will be intelligent, and instead of robot, there will be cobot, which is called a collaborative robot, which is safe robot, where the human intervention will be also there. Apart from the robot, it's a kind of semi-automated system wherein human intervention will also be there. So there are some ethical issues are also related with AI, because there is a huge chance of job loss. So you need to redeploy, or before that, you need to retrain your employees. So if your employees are not technically that much savvy, so you have to retrain those employees, and so that you can redeploy. A fair distribution or well planning you need a machine interaction of the human behavior you need to attain. And another thing is you have to address the different algorithmic biasness. So security is also a factor. So these are the few of the ethical issues which you need to address once you try to deploy artificial intelligence in your business for risk management or maybe any other kind of management system. Few of the case studies I can show you that this is one factory I visited before pandemic in Oxford. It's a mini BMW plant where there was only 4,000 people who are working. Currently, the number is also less. Where they produce it's around 2 lakhs of BMW per year. It's a completely automated one. It's all are cobots. Basically, they are robots. Few of them are cobots also. Apart from the quality check, almost everything was driven by machine. And this was a shoe factory in China. There was 280 plus steps are there, and majority of the steps are human driven. A few of the steps are automated step. And every phases there are different risk factors and the potential risk. How can you face those risks and how can you mitigate those risks? So it's a kind of 3D plotting. It's 3D scanning based on that, the size of the shape of the shoe, and you can design your sole. This particular institute lab, they are trying to design the sole, and then after that there was 280 different steps, and you will get your shoe. So now, whatever you are doing intermediate step, it's fine if you go for entirely automated system or human-driven system. But lastly, the final few steps, that the quality issue or the monitoring issue, these should be completely human-driven. Means otherwise, there will be some sort of quality degradation, which is, see, in this BMW factory, which I'm saying, everything was completely robot are doing the whole task. They are creating the chases, they are keep putting everything completely. But last phase, the quality phase is driven by human being. So now that's why industry 5, where we are moving, they are not suggesting for robot. They are suggesting for cobot. Means the robot will be there, but human intervention will be there. So it should be a collaborative way so that the human intervention expertise, experiences that will be injected into the technology, and so that the technology will be smart, much more smarter. So not only the artificial intelligence can do. See, artificial intelligence is always good, but human intelligence is something else. So AI and human intelligence, if you try to integrate both, that is a cobot, then that will be something different. So that's why cyber physical system. And lastly, you can say the man-machine cybernetics. So man is the first term, then comes machine, then comes cybernetics. So they invented machine, and machine, from machine we can go to cybernetics. So man is always important. Automated system is always good, but human-driven system is something different.
Thank you. So we have one question from one of the senior professor, Professor Satpathy, sir, is there.
Please.
Sir, please.
Sir, you are muted. Sir, bhalo achi. Sir, you are muted. No, sir.
Sir, it's mute, sir.
Yes, sir. Now it is fine.
Dr. Nilanjan, good morning. Namaskar. Good to see you after 3 years.
Namaskar, sir. Namaskar.
We last met at Delhi.
Yes, yes.
The question is now, Industry 4.0 was the buzzword, and recently Industry 7.0 has penetrated into the world of AI, into the world of innovation and all that.
True.
If at all you have come across this Industry 7.0, wherein they are now countering Elon Musk and his successors, how do you think that this 7.0 is going to play a big role in innovation, especially business innovation?
Sir, business innovation, I don't know, but there is the landscape will change. That I think means the innovation part is different. Means, see, innovation is very less, yes. But landscape, the solving problem, the approach which we are doing currently, the way will be different. Means how we are approaching. Maybe
yes, they are saying that in 7.0 we don't require any robots, we don't require any machines. We will have chips planted in our brains, and the brain-to-brain B2B communication, brain-to-brain communication will be there. All algorithms will take place in the brain. This is a very, very big mega dream project, I would say, 7.0.
Sir, yes, sir. We always think first about the friction, then we chase that friction and for the reality.
Yeah, so I would like to apprise the entire house of 59 participants that 7.0 is coming up in a big way. We as academicians, faculty, industry practitioners, we should not be hovering around 4.0 and taking all the benefits out of that. Sure. The world has already moved from 4.0 to 5, 6, and now 7. Argentina Professor Laza has already spoken about 7.0, and that's going to bring about a big quantum change in the world of business dynamics, AI, operational research, and all allied subjects. Thank you. True. Thank you, Dr. Nilanjan.
True. Thank you, sir.
Good to again see you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So now I would like to request vote of thanks from the team of ICARI. Sonia, madam.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Nilanjan Dey, for an informative and interesting presentation on the topic Artificial Intelligence and Risk Management. It is a trending topic as of now. I kindly request you to accept our token of love and honor in the form of e-certificate. Thank you, sir.
Next, we have second keynote speaker of international conference, Dr. Randa Hariri. Dr. Randa Hariri, an associate professor in the Master Program of Educational Leadership, the founder and the former director of the Center of Excellence in Teaching and Learning, occupied a non-academic position for 6 years as the Director of Strategic Planning and Performance Evaluation Department in Dar al Hikmah University, Jeddah, KSA. Dr. Randa, as a PhD in education, teaching excellence and quality in higher education from the University of Sheffield, England, Masters of Arts in Educational Administration and Policy Studies, and postgraduate diploma in educational leadership and management from the American University of Beirut, and licentiate in psychology and emphasis in educational psychology. Dr. Randa is certified KPIs professional and practitioner, as well as strategic planning professional. Dr. Randa has developed a curriculum of several academic programs, master program in educational leadership, bachelor program in psychology, university preparation program, teaching diploma program, postgraduate program of leadership and management, research methodology program, and performance management and quality assurance diploma in higher education with all their components. She had written more than 150 policies and procedures for higher education institutions. Dr. Randa has developed and implemented professional development programs for teachers in schools and universities designed to meet the exact needs and interests. She trained more than 1,000 teachers in both the schools and universities. Dr. Randa is a consultant and reviewer for accreditation and quality. She coordinated a 5-year strategic plan and accreditation procession at institutional and program levels. Dr. Randa won several excellence awards in acknowledgement of her outstanding performance in teaching and leadership positions. Dr. Randa has increasing interest in research in teaching and learning assessment, psychology, quality assurance, and other relevant topics. Dr. Randa has 15 publications, supervised more than 30 theses, and acting as a reviewer in Scopus Index Q1 journals. On behalf of all of us gathered here, I welcome you, ma'am. I request you to kindly take over.
Hello, everyone. According to our time, it's good morning. I want to welcome you all and thanks for this introduction. Let me share my screen and start my presentation for today, or actually kind of discussion. Okay. Teaching and learning post-COVID-19. Actually, this question came into my mind during the first week when we resume our teaching and learning after COVID-19, after we were allowed back to come back into our classes, into our physical setting. So during the first week, I started to ask this question: should teaching and learning post-COVID-19, when we came back into our classes, physical setting of the classes, be the same as teaching and learning before COVID-19? So to engage in answering this question, let us have a look at the general or the available modes of instruction that we have. If you look at this chart, we can see that the mode of instruction range from face-to-face instruction, or what's abbreviated as F2F learning and teaching, into distance learning. And the F2F learning, the online learning, comprises only 0%. It takes place in our physical classroom settings, whereas in the distance learning, it's 100% online. Then between the distance learning and the face-to-face learning, we have the web-facilitated learning, whereby the online learning comprises around 29%, and we have the online learning, which comprises around 80%, maximum percentage of 80%. And we have as well between the online and the web, or in the middle, we have the blended learning, where online learning comprises between 30% to 79%. So what happened actually? Eventually, COVID-19 or coronavirus attacked in 2019, and that maybe in March 2019. All governments of all countries where coronavirus attacked, they asked for a lockdown. And coronavirus or COVID-19 pandemic attacked all sectors. And eventually, education sector was one of them. So, however, thanks for technology, technology enabled and empowered the education sector not to interrupt. So all education leaders, in response to the government call to shut down all their schools or the education institutions in order to avoid the spread of coronavirus, to close their doors, to shut their doors. But technology, and again, thanks to technology, enabled the education sector or enabled the teaching learning process to go on to pursue. Now we came into an era that we can call it post-COVID-19, because we were able to resume back, to go back into our physical settings, into our campuses. So the question, as I asked at the beginning, should teaching and learning before COVID-19 be the same, post-COVID-19 be the same as it was before COVID-19? Here, a possible answer is no. So let's adopt a blended learning approach, a blended learning teaching approach. So to go into that solution, which is the blended learning approach, blended learning teaching approach, we need to rethink education. We need to rethink teaching, and we need to rethink learning as well. But what specifically we need to rethink? When we say rethink, we mean changing. We need to do certain modifications. We need to do certain changes to the learning teaching components. What are the learning teaching components? So you need to make modifications or changes at the learning outcomes and the content knowledge, the teaching strategies, the learning activities, the teaching aids, as well as the assessment methods and tool that we use in our classes or that we use in our teaching and learning. So now all these changes that we recommended to all components of the learning teaching process, they have to be taken in the 3 phases of the learning teaching process. Certain changes have to be taken in the planning phase, which takes place off stage, not in the classroom, not during the interaction between the students and the teacher, where the teacher is planning, is thinking about her teaching. And it should also take place on the delivery phase, which is on stage during the interaction between students and teachers, and thereafter at the assessment phase, which, as we know, assessment can take place whether on stage or off stage. When we say on stage, I mean during in class, whether in virtual classrooms or in physical setting of classroom, and off stage it could be such as doing assignments or projects, which is not in the class, and we'll talk about this toward the end of this presentation. So here we address when these changes and modifications need to take place in order to be able to adopt a new blended learning teaching approach. Now, what are the changes, the modifications, the transformations that we need to take in the planning phase, that we need to implement actually in the planning phase? Let's look together at the learning journey. The learning journey for the students and the teacher together, but the teacher is here and is there to facilitate the learning journey. The learning journey starts from the learning outcome. The learning outcomes, or what's called the students' learning outcomes, or we can call it the learning objectives, but not anymore the course objectives. We are here to facilitate the learning of the students. So the learning outcome, which comprises the knowledge, comprises the skills, comprises the attitudes inside, or the values that the students need to adopt, are there, or they can be developed by the teacher herself. And then from this learning outcome, the teacher extracts the topics that she needs to discuss or he needs to discuss in the classroom. Then the teachers go for designing or selecting the teaching strategies that best fit the topic and enable the teachers to help the students to achieve the learning outcomes, then the learning activities which are embedded and highly integrated in the teaching strategies, ending up with the assessment. All of these, the topics, the teaching strategies, the learning activities, and the assessment, they are highly related to the learning outcomes. Actually, not only highly related, they are aligned with the learning outcomes. So this rendered the learning outcomes to be the leader of the learning teaching process. Everything that teachers need to design or make, they have to be in alignment with the learning teaching, with the learning outcomes. And here, when we reach to the assessment, we can say that the teachers, they have to assess how much the students achieved from the learning outcomes, or if the students did achieve the learning outcomes or not, or how far are they from the learning outcomes. The teacher in here, the teachers, they have to help the students construct the knowledge that intended in the learning outcomes. If you look here at also at the teaching strategies and at the learning activities, we have we see integration between the learning activities and the teaching strategies. And here where the teachers are called to make a balance between the teaching strategies and the learning outcomes. They need to, and this balance has to be at the level of allowing the students on stage to more and more engage in their own learning. The more the students perform in the class and get engaged in the class, so the percentage of the student-centeredness will become higher. And the less the teachers in the class get engaged or perform on stage, the percentage of student-centeredness will be higher. And here where the teachers can make sure that yes, the students are more and more engaging and actively engaging in their own learning. Yes, it is their own learning and not the learning or not the teaching of the students, of the teachers. To delve more into the interaction, let's see this learning, this interaction model. So the teachers here, the teacher here has a main role in order to provide a learning opportunity for the students. But this learning opportunity should not be any learning opportunity. It has to be challenging learning opportunity. Why we are talking about a challenging learning opportunity? Because learning opportunity, it has to be, it is when the learning opportunity is challenging, it allows learning or it enhances learning to occur. And this what was raised actually by Vygotsky, when he said that the challenging learning opportunities which lies within the zone of proximal development of the student, which lies at or falls at the intellectual level of students' development, they can achieve the relevant learning outcome from where the learning opportunity arises, but they need certain guidance and certain facilitation and certain scaffolding or help or support from their teachers. So here, this learning opportunity, it could be in the form of challenging question, in the form of a challenging article, a challenging task, a challenging maybe video or a project or whatever task that the teachers want to provide. And then the students are given time to think individually, independently, and to interact with this task, with the available provided task. And then the students, when they engage with the task and interact with this task, they construct their knowledge, their own knowledge about the task in hand. Then they need to be given time in order to interact with their peers about this task. Also do certain modifications to the constructed knowledge or maintain it, then share this constructed knowledge with the teachers. So in this interaction model, teachers, they are rendered to be learning opportunities providers, whereas the students, they are rendered to be knowledge constructors. Not anymore they need knowledge, information receiver or something in this relation. What do we need? Why actually this transformation is needed at this level? So here we said that we need to do certain transformations at the level of the learning outcomes. When we talk about the learning outcomes in here, we mean the leader of the learning teaching process. Why this transformation has to be taken place and how it is enabled. Actually, it was because of the advancement of the vast and fast advancements that the technology had during the last in the last decade. So here, this advancement in technology had led to explosion in the information, explosion of databases, explosion of research engines that provide multiple or unlimited, if we can say, amount of information that are rendered readily available for the students. So here, the teachers, they need not anymore to provide information for the students, because all types of information, they are rendered available via the research engines, via the available databases, and the students have to be encouraged to go and find this information, the relevant information, according to the database, according to the learning outcome in hand. So all the information or the data that students are encouraged to find from the various research engines or provided by these various resources, they are provided actually by the through technology. So the teachers, they only have to guide the students about the topics that they need to find, and they shouldn't anymore spend time on providing this type of information. Now, when we talked about the learning outcomes, or finished from talking about the learning outcomes, whereby the change need to avoid the information, the providing of information at the level of providing the information, we need now to rethink the learning, to rethink the intellectual actually processes that the students need to take in order to facilitate the learning and in order to make learning occurs. So as I just mentioned, direct and lecturing not anymore is needed, not anymore is favored. Why? Because as I mentioned, that all the information that the teachers need to provide as information in the form of lecturing. They don't need to do so anymore, because they are more than available in the internet, and the students, they can get it in the press of a button, even sometimes faster than getting it from their memory. The teachers, they are invited and encouraged to think about the intellectual processes that the students need to engage in order to achieve the learning outcomes. And these cognitive and intellectual processes, they can be managed by the teachers to be through learning opportunities that allow the students, first of all, to interact with the material, with the topics, with the information that they already found independently from the available research engines, and then this information they can first of all construct their knowledge about it. After they have interacted with it, they can share the construction knowledge with their with their peers, with their classmates, to listen to the way they think and do certain modifications for the constructed knowledge. Or they can go for what we call critical, they can engage in critical thinking, whereby the students, they are encouraged to relate the information with each other, the available information to each other, and to identify the relationships that exist between these the information in hand, and more importantly, to find the reason behind this relationship between the information. And here where we can have critical thinkers indeed, because students, we are not asking students anymore just to collect information. We need them to construct knowledge, and this knowledge has to be critically constructed. And when we say critically constructed, we need to have to allow them to know the relationship between the information and identify the reasons behind such relationship. Also, we need to help them to facilitate and to support the students to engage in their learning independently. In this way, we are actually creating independent learners. And when students, they engage in their own learning, and when they have a challenging learning opportunities that they can achieve, although these learning opportunities, they are challenging, yet they can achieve, we can increase the motivation for the students to learn and to be continuous learning. So in this model, we are securing or ensuring two things at a time. We are ensuring generating independent learners and learners. And this is what we really need from learning and teaching, or from the whole learning teaching process. And this can be facilitated and enhanced or enabled even by adopting the blended learning teaching approach. So here, when before COVID, during COVID-19, we started as educators to call for bringing the face-to-face practices and the teaching strategies into virtual classrooms. Now, post COVID-19, we don't want to lose all the skills that teachers acquired and that students acquired during online learning. We need not to ignore all these skills and knowledge that everyone acquired. We need to invest in that. That's why blended learning, a teaching approach, is a solution and is really recommended in order to pursue the learning teaching process, and this learning teaching process would be more successful and help in generating independent learners and lifelong learners. So here we'll go together through a journey to see what are the strategies that can be employed in the classroom in the following the or by adopting the learning teaching, the blended learning teaching approach, or the integrated learning teaching approach, or the hybrid, also it's called the hybrid learning teaching approach. So first of all, we have the flipped classroom. The flipped classroom is well known, whereby the teachers, they give a task to the student beforehand, or they post it on any platform that they use. And this task, it could be in the form of watching a video, article to read, or research study to read, or a text. It can be in a form of questions. It can be form of PowerPoint presentation with the sources, available sources, and they provide it to the students. So here they provided a learning opportunity that the students need to engage in, to interact with, whereby they can watch this video on their own pace within a period of time off stage. They can read the article or the research study, they can answer the questions or engage in answering the questions and prepare their answers, and then come to the classroom on stage, to the physical setting back again, to have to discuss, or the teachers must prepare certain learning activities, again challenging learning activities, in order for the students to help the student, to support the students in achieving the intended learning outcome, undergo a discussion. So here I need just before moving, I want to emphasize that when we say flipped classroom, we don't mean at work in a group to answer questions, or they can do it the other way around, where the teacher can raise the topic, can raise or discuss the topic, give the topic to the students, and ask them to find from the various research engines and the databases the relevant videos that can explain this topic in hand, in order to help them achieve the intended learning or student learning outcome. Another strategies could be the webinar, whereby through, for example, having interactive PowerPoints. The PowerPoints, every, for example, 2 or 3 slides, the teachers can pose a question that students need to answer. This is one of the strategy, and in this slide we may have, for example, 1, 2, or 3 questions, and for example, after 3 to 4 to 5 slides, the 5th slide can incorporate the questions. In this way, the teacher always ensures that the students, they are paying attention, because they need to answer the question. Also, they break the attention span of the students, and moving them from just listen that they think this question is challenging to other students, and invite their classmates to answer this question. And all students are invited to answer. They will answer, and the teacher will oversee these questions and answers, and correct if any misconception is there among the students. Also, we can use such forum to allow students to ask questions that they really don't know, and giving the opportunity for students. So this is another learning opportunity, giving the opportunity for students to answer their classmates, and instead of the teacher answering these questions. Also, the teachers monitoring the answer. Also, we can go for what we call the task analysis, whereby the teachers, they provide, you see, every time the teacher is the opportunity, the learning opportunity provider. They can provide the students with the text, research study, article, picture, chart, illustration, anything. And here they divide this text into parts, and give each student a part and a section of this text, or of this article, or of this research study. And they divide the class into groups and on WhatsApp, on their mobile, and ask them to answer any questions on their in the group, using their mobile, using the WhatsApp here, for example, and they see each other's answers, and then they discuss these answers with the teacher. Also, also we can do that on individual basis. And also we can engage the students, make task analysis, and this is and to answer several questions raised by the students in the classroom. So this task analysis either can be run individually and students answer the questions, or even formulate the questions and invite their friends to answer, or the teachers formally ask questions and ask everyone to answer. And during answering, either the students can do this individually, or they can do it collaboratively or working in a group. And here I just want to emphasize the importance of giving the task of formulating questions to the students, because when students read something or watch something or listen to something, and when they need to formulate questions for about it, they get to be more. They need to think critically about it, and in a deeper way. Need to answer or just read. Need to get to engage in a regular discussion. Finally, the third phase, we come to the assessment phase. In this phase, in assessment, as you know, we have the assessment and we have assessment tools. And before COVID-19 and when we were in physical teaching and learning, mainly the assessment was exam-based. And the questions in the form of MCQs, matching, fill in the blank, short answer questions, long answer questions, and this stuff. We incorporated these during COVID-19, and when learning and teaching was solely online, we incorporated and we used these assessment tools online. But as you know, this type of exams or assessment tool allowed teaching to take place to a great extent. And this was proven by lots of research study and even from our experience as teachers in universities. So now, post COVID-19, teachers, they are invited to change, also to do a transformation, or during in the blended learning teaching approach from the traditional assessment into the what we call the authentic assessment, where we can where assessment can take place either in the physical setting on stage or off stage, when the students they do it independently. So we can go for writing essays, writing reports, writing reflective papers, journals, analyzing videos, analyzing movies, analyzing documentaries, case studies, formulating digital stories, infographics. For example, listening to an audio and engage in questions and answers, watching a video and answering questions, doing projects and others. Definitely authentic, when we say authentic assessment, we need to think about development of rubrics. Each of these, just like, for example, in traditional assessment, we have what we call answer key for all our exams. Here we have to have rubrics, and these rubrics should include specific criteria for the students to work and according to that and do their work, whether off stage or on stage. By this, I come to ending my presentation and my participation in this conference. Thank you for listening, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I'm ready to answer if you have any questions.
Madam, good morning. This is Dr. P.K. Paul from India.
Good morning.
One question just I want to ask you. Before pandemic, in your country, most of the classes were organized in physically, right? And now blended too. So those students are coming in the campus. Why? What you academician call it as offline? You are calling or physical mode? What is the actual nomenclature there? Offline or physical or on campus? Which is actual as per educationalist? You think? Because I have seen there are many nomenclature like on campus, offline. So do you think offline is a correct word?
The current one now we came back into campus, into our physical settings. But the recommended one is that to incorporate all the knowledge and the skills, teaching skills and learning skills that were acquired during COVID-19, incorporate them now in the physical setting to have a blended and integrated. We need not to forget and ignore all the skills that students learn during online learning and just go back completely into the way we used to teach before COVID-19. Because as you know, during COVID-19, the technology provided lots of research engines and research and databases and rendered information more than available to students. So yes, we call for blended learning approach in order to help this to avoid actually or to save the time spent by the teachers on just providing information. Students, they can find the information independently. Now we need in class, in the physical setting, we need to engage in thinking and learning at higher level, apart from just giving the information. Hope I answered your question. So now we came back into our physical setting.
So physical settings in Saudi Arabia is called physical class or offline class? What is actual?
No, it's called face-to-face class, F to F.
Face-to-face.
Yes.
F to F.
Yes.
Okay. In our country, we have seen there are many government notification they are calling as offline class. Those are physical. But I have seen in UK and other countries it is called on-site and on-campus classes.
Yes, yes. Also in USA they call it in person.
In person.
Yes. Yeah. So different namings, but for the same concept.
Okay. So thank you so much, madam, for your kind deliberation. You have covered all these things. So if any questions you can ask to ICARI team. If any participants or any dignitaries present over here, any questions, then you can ask. Otherwise, we will move to the token of appreciation by ICARI team 2021.
I think Anita raised her hand, or no?
Thank you, Dr. Randa Hariri, for the outstanding presentation on the topic teaching and learning on the post-COVID-19 towards blended learning. Thank you so much, ma'am. On the token of appreciation and love, we are presenting you the e-certificate. Kindly accept the same, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you for this opportunity. Have a good day.
So now we have book release event. Now I request Dr. P.K. Paul to say a few words on this occasion. We are proud to announce the release of a peer-reviewed book entitled Emergence of Information and Communication Technology in Business, Society and Management under Interdisciplinary Knowledge Series, New Delhi Publishers, New Delhi, India, edited by Dr. P.K. Paul, Dr. P.S. Aithan, Dr. Krishna Prasad K, Dr. P.S. Netravati, New Delhi Publishers, New Delhi, India. During this international conference on academic research and innovation in management, information technology, social science and education, ICARI 2021, Day 2, a flagship College of Commerce and Management, Srinivas University, Mangalore, India, and European International University, France initiative on 25th November 2021. We also congratulate the editors, authors, peer reviewers, and supporters in this regard.
So thank you. First of all, I want to share this book is a result of one international conference held during this year month of May, organized by Srinivas University College of Computer and Information Science, and also this Crown University International Chartered Incorporated at Argentina at Worldwide Campus, and also a organization, or we can say an industry trainer called Data Space Security. So we are thankful all the authors, all the paper presenters, because their books are now ready and available to the market. During the day of presentation, they have only submitted their abstract. Now after peer reviewing, this book is ready for the market. I, on behalf of all the editors, all the peer reviewers, congratulate every author for this grand occasion. And I want to thank the ICARI 2021 team for the publishing this or inaugurating this book in this platform. Thank you, everyone. I want to thank especially Professor P.S. Aithal sir, the Vice Chancellor, and also the convener of that conference, Dr. Krishna Prasad K, who did a lot hard for collecting the papers and other review and other editorial activities. So I am thankful to him also, Aithal sir, and also Netravati madam of College of CIS, Srinivas University, Mangalore. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
So now I request Swati Bhatt to propose a vote of thanks.
I, Swati Bhatt, student of Srinivas University, on behalf of organizing committee and the university, would like to thank the dignitaries, our Chancellor and Chief Patron, Dr. C.A. Raghavendra Rao, Pro-Chancellor and Patron, Dr. A. Srinivas Rao, Director, Srimati Vijayalakshmi Rao, Secretary and Patron, Srimati Mitra S. Rao, and our Vice Chancellor and General Chair, Dr. P.S. Aithal. A hearty gratitude to the speakers of today, Dr. Neelanjan Dey and Dr. Randa Hari. I would also like to thank our Dean and Coordinator, Srimati Keertan Raj, Publication Chair, Dr. Shailashri VT, Convener, ICARI, Dr. Sonia Narana, Organizing Secretary, Sri Amit Milisis, Co-Convener, Dr. Niyaz Panakaji. Last but not the least, I thank all the participants of this event and each one of you. Next will be technical session. I request all the participants to kindly coordinate with the moderator of your respective session. Thank you. And I wish all the best to all the participants.
Please note that we have come to the end of the formal function. We now move on to the technical paper presentation sessions, which will be held in 3 parallel sessions. Session 1 will be headed by Dr. N. Biswas, who is a director in charge of Aligarh Muslim University, West Bengal, India, and moderated by Professor Shraga Srinivas of Srinivas University. And session 2 will be chaired by Dr. Shailashri VT, who is a professor from Srinivas University, and moderated by Professor Sharmila Shetty. Session 3 will be chaired by Dr. Niyaz Panakaje and moderated by Professor Yashasvi from Srinivas University. I request all the paper presenters to kindly join the link that is shared in the WhatsApp group. These paper presentations will be done under the Google Meet platform. Thank you, one and all.
Feedback form is shared in the group, in the WhatsApp, in the Zoom chat box. Please ensure that you fill the right details in it, including your email ID as well as the right spellings that is to be put in the certificate. Thank you.